So this is one of the new 62 MAS reissues. Seiko sure has been cranking out these reissues. Some of the high-end limited edition models, the previous ones that came out, $5,000 and $6,000 and more, I thought they were okay, but there were things that were left to be desired. I saw photographs of these. The photographs first started appearing, gosh, I think in February, something like that. I'm not really sure. Hang on a second. Okay, I wanted to go to, I wanted to check the sound levels because I didn't want it to be too loud, and the other thing I was doing wasn't showing the sound levels. So this, I can see the sound levels. Okay, so here we go. So I saw pictures of this back in February, and one of the first things that I noticed was the hands, which gave me hope. Seiko does this thing. They've done it ever since the SKX, where the original of a watch is going to have just absolute, well, let me go get it. Okay. So, for example, here is an original unrestored 6309 diver. There it is. This one is this is from March 86. No, I'm sorry, it's from June 83. In any case, but you can see if you look at the hand surface, it is absolutely flat. Utterly flat. Especially, you can see the flat hand surface here on this sweep seconds hand. When Seiko tends to reissue this stuff, or when they modernize, they changed how the hands were doing. Like the next generation, 7002, you look at these hands, they're sort of blobby. You can see that the light kind of runs over the bump of them. And it got even more extreme in the reissues. You can see the hand tops are not really flat. They're kind of dome topped. So I was not, well, worried is not the right term. I was concerned that we were going to see the same thing because it tended to happen. Now, I'm trying to think. There were a few examples where Seiko did not do that. In some of the watches, they got terribly right. So, like, this is a 6159, 7001 from 1969, and it's dusty. Sorry about that. But you see the hands are absolutely flat. This is the SPDX-001, and you can see the hands are absolutely flat, which is just exactly what you want. Seiko did this watch right. It seriously is one of Seiko's greatest watches, this one. I have some quibbles about it, but generally I think it's awesome. So when I saw this handset in pictures, it looked like the handset was absolutely flat, which was great, and sharp-edged, which is perfect. Something else I liked is that the handset was gabled. It has this, that means it's two flat planes and it's got this peak in the middle. I just thought it was lovely. So I was excited about that. And so it was one of the first things I looked at when I opened up this box. And the hands were really, I don't know. That it was the first thing I noticed, and I was really pleased. So then, looking over the watch itself, it's a good entry. My first impression was good. You know who else's first impression was good? Sabrina. She actually liked it right out of the box, which is really unusual for Sabrina. She pretty much doesn't like any new watches, and she's skeptical about a lot of stuff, but she had a good feeling about this one. She liked it immediately, which is great, and I'll talk more about some of her feelings on this. Okay, one of the things that she liked was this. She was really taken by this strap. She loved the way that it felt. It didn't feel like hard rubber, and she says it feels just like a kitty nose. And it is very smooth. It's thick, and it's kind of not stiff. It's not the right thing. I haven't really broken this thing in. Okay, I haven't really broken it in. I've only worn it for a very brief amount of time, and mostly I've just been watching it and thinking about it. So anyway, but the strap is neat. All the other models come on bracelets, and I kind of wish I also had the bracelet option on this one, but you know, I'll do it. I'll do it as I can. It has. It's interesting. People are calling this the 6R MAS instead of the 62 MAS. They're calling it the 6R MAS, and I think that's reasonable because the original 62 MAS, that was the dial code. So this is a 6R blah 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 blah, blah, and so it's a, but it doesn't say MAS on here. One thing it does say, I'm actually really sorry that the dial and the case back don't match, because the code here is OOK, OOK. On the case back, it's OOP, OOP. I wish they were front and back both OOK. That would be really great, because then this would be a librarian watch. The dial is nicely done. It's interesting to see how a slightly different treatment of the same thing didn't really change the way something looked. Just to go back, talking about 6309s. So this original 6309, you see the dial is absolutely flat, loom absolutely flat, right? So the reissue, Seiko used this new loom, and it was sort of puffy and shiny and raised, and it made this watch look kind of glitzy. And it wasn't necessarily a hit with everyone because of that, and I kind of complained about that a little bit. But that same puffy loom here, where it's in smaller, more discrete sections, it's not overwhelming, actually works really well. Especially considering that we don't have the advantage that the original 62 MAS had, which were the highly raised markers with the filled with an indented loom. So we have raised markers. They're not super raised. They're raised, and then we have this loom that's piled on top of them, and it actually works out really well, in my opinion. The comparison is this from this. They tried to have it both ways with the SPDX, where they have the raised, the raised frame with the inset loom, but with the blobby tops on the markers, they kind of a little bit missed the mark. Here they didn't even try to have that inset done. They just had, they have, it might have a little bit of an inset, but it is, it's mostly added on top of, which is cool. I'm a big fan, talking now about the dial. Dial has some nice pieces to it. People bitch about the X. The X doesn't bother me at all. Again, because it makes this triangle and it's symmetrical, and I think that's nice. Nice subtle gold printing. It's ever so slightly glossy, ever so slightly raised. Date window has a beveled frame, which is nice, because that's one of the only quibbles I have about the 7002s, is that they have, the date window is just flat around the outside. I wish this had a really seriously beveled bevel around that. It would make it look a lot more neatly finished rather than just sort of a hole punched out of it. But they did a good job with this one. Something that was super impressive, going back to the hands, one thing that they did do, which I'm jacked about, hang on just one second, is they got the sweep seconds hand. It's interesting. These are high polish gold. The sweep seconds hand, a lot of times that sort of blobby rounded top is what you get with these. Seiko doesn't make this hand exactly perfectly flat, but in this case they did. It's utterly flat. It's an excellent recreation of the original sweep hand. Not only that, interestingly, they made the finish satin. And the fact that it's satin is really cool. That means you can basically see it at every every possible angle, it's always there, versus the high polish, which vanishes when it goes into shadow. So you can always see that sweep secondhand. That's really neat. Okay. I'm going to have another section about the loom here in just a second. Insert is cool. It's got sort of a circular brushed finish with inset numbers, sort of this tannish paint that we'll talk about more. The quality is nice. It's one thing I was afraid. One thing about this watch, you don't have to worry about it having a chapter ring misalignment issue because there is no chapter ring there. Well, there is, but it doesn't have any printing on it. These hash marks are printed directly on the dial, just like the 6105 was done. But I was looking at this pip, and it keeps freaking me out. If you notice, it looks like it's not aligned, right? And I keep thinking it's not aligned. So I looked at this super closely under... Hang on a second, Sebastian's here. He wants to tell me something. Sebastian wanted to tell me that tomorrow was Saturday. Anyway, so looking at this thing, let's see if I can do this in a way that works. No, that's not going to do the job. What I found actually is that the pip is in fact perfectly centered, but whatever this stuff is, the paint, whatever it is, it didn't make it around here. So if this is paint, I'll just have to sort of color match this and try to fill that in. It's sort of, it's odd that, because you can tell, like there, look, boom, it looks perfectly centered. But with the paint that's missing around there, it makes it look like it's off-center. It's, you know, a tiny QC issue, one that's easily fixed. I love the rest of it. I mean, I love the rest of the insert and everything else like that. I think it's really good. Sorry about all the dust. Yeah, OOK0. Okay, so now let's talk about the case. Speaking of sort of blobbiness, again, one of the things that Seiko tends to do is they tend to make cases blobby instead of straight and flat and clean. So like you have this. Let's move this over here. Here is the original, gosh darn it, would you stop it? Original 6159. Very, very, relatively speaking, flat planes. Like if you look at the top of the lugs, how relatively flat they are, how perfectly flat the back is. There isn't a lot of like sort of blobbiness to it. And you compare that to this SPDX-001 first gen Marine Master, and it's got this, it's sort of more of a Baroque thing, much curvier, blobbier case. You can see how they go. See, it's got like more fancy things on it. So they kind of did that here as well. Now, I've owned a lot of 62, I've owned a good number of 62 MAS watches. I don't have one here anymore because I sold them all. Typically, though, they always had, I have as a stand-in my Arley. Now, the Arley has that same flatness to it. And this is a lot what the 62 MAS looked like, and that gives you a good idea. Whereas this is a little more, again, it has more action going on. It's got extra bevels on the side and things, and these lug faces curve down a little bit more. But it works. Let's see now. Okay. I want to look at the size of this. We all know the size. Yeah, so just a little over 40 millimeters wide. 14 tall. Oops, hang on. 47 long. It's a good size. It's a good size. it's a good size. Like I said, I haven't worn it a whole lot, so I haven't really figured out how this size works on my wrist, but it's, in terms of, I mean, it's not far away from this Arlie, which is a classic skin diver size. Okay, hang on a second for me. Okay, now here's the next thing. So this watch has been here for about well over 2 days. It's been running. I didn't put the numbers on. I haven't done anything with the numbers. I set it to internet time, and I put it on with this, and I've confirmed that this poor old Arnie is also to the second accurate. So you can see this thing's been running for about more than 2 days, and it has lost, it looks like 2 seconds. Yesterday it lost a second, today it lost another one. So it's running about a second under. So what I want to do is, I haven't looked at the numbers at all. I haven't put this thing on the Timegrapher. No idea what we're going to find. So I want to pull this. I'm gonna let's pull the plug and go over there and look at it. Okay, so here we go. This is the first I literally have not looked at the numbers at all. You can see here. Let's mute this. This is the same. 6R is the same as 7S, so that's 53. Let's find out together. It's been running. It's at full power as far as I know. Okay, well, that's good amplitude. We definitely have serious beat error. Almost a full blank of beat error. And we're gaining some time. The amplitude is good. 281 is fine. I would accept that. I mean, typical for Seiko, it's not. Well, here, let me do this. Let me flip it around. That will bring the that brings the balance closer to the microphone. Let's see if that changes anything. we got a whole number now for the beat error. 283. It's just choppy. You remember when I did the Orient? And the Orient was a flat line. It was perfect. Okay, so I think we're seeing some real consistent numbers. This means that I'm going to want to adjust this. The issue with adjusting these, they have a C-type balance, or probably this is a D-type balance. But the way that means is that the D-type balance does not have a fixed stud for the hairspring. You can move it around and turn it, which means you can do all kinds of weird things. And you can really jack up the balance very, very quickly. So I'll have to do that very, very carefully. Yeah, those numbers are staying steady. It's a pity about the beat error, but those are better numbers than I would have expected. I don't know. The whole thing makes me nervous, fiddling with one of those D-type, C-type, D-type balances, because there's so much variability. Okay. Okay. So things that I like. I love. I think that I love the handset. The handset's nice. I am pleased with the color of the loom. I'm so grateful they didn't go sliding towards green, which is what the Willard reissue was. Green loom. I hate it. It just looks so cheap to me. I understand that that's just a personal thing and that's not fact. That's just how I feel. The fact that this loom is slightly tan is really great, because it's one of the things I love most about the SPDX-001 is the slightly cream loom, and I think that was exactly the right choice. If they had gone green on this, like the reissue 6159, I could barely stand to look at it because of that green loom. The dial is a very nice satin, very, very subtle, slightly burgundy brown. The metal's clean. I like the crown. They did a nice job with the crown. It very much resembles the original, and it's also unsigned. I was afraid they were going to put a big old S on this, but it's unsigned. They could have put the old block Seiko across it. That would have been great. I don't mind the X. The X has never bothered me. They did, I'm not quite sure why they did this, but normally on these old coin-style bezels, you'll have an undercut below and the top will be sharper, and they kind of flipped that, so you have a bevel around the top here. But it's fine. It's a domed sapphire, which is fine in this case. Thankfully, it has no AR. Thank God Almighty. Bezel, nice and clicky. Unidirectional. Can't go the other way, and it locks up tightly very quickly. It has a little bit of play in how it's put together. I haven't pulled that bezel off to see why that is the way it is, but I mean, it's a subtle thing. Okay, so talking about the loom, a departure for Seiko is they went blue. I think of that as more of a citizen thing. But they did go blue, and it's a nice even color. It's certainly legible. It looks like only the pip there is loomed. So I would say, in conclusion, it's I dig it. I think it's a good model. It's definitely modernized. It's, you know, it's got these bevels and things on it, and it's pulled back. It's a little more clean. A little more involved. But a lot of the basic design elements are there. I think the biggest two things are, well, it's unadjusted, but we knew that. They never adjust their stuff, but it's depressing that they're so consistent in how they're not adjusted correctly. I don't know why that is, but they're almost always slightly off in accuracy with some beat error. I have no idea why. This issue with the paint around this pip, that's sort of annoying, and this stuff isn't loom, it's just paint. So I'm going to have to kind of try to color match this to paint that in. I'll see how much it bugs me. I will be curious to know if other people report this. So again, this pip, it's not misaligned. It sure looks like it's misaligned, doesn't it? But it's not. It's the missing paint around that thing. So if you look at it this way, it's perfectly centered. So I have, I guess, a few things ahead of me. I might have to work up a strap option. I want to look and see about how this rotating ring is retained. I'm going to need to adjust the beat error and accuracy, and I need to decide about this. I'm curious if you guys, anybody who has one of these, I'd be curious to know your serial numbers to see when these were sort of generally produced, like when they were originally made. This one was originally made in March, so they always produce the stuff before it goes on sale. Oh, the only other thing too is they're doing this modern thing that Seiko does, where instead of having a rubber keeper, they have a metal one. From a practicality standpoint, that's good because this is more durable, and sometimes they break, but it just seems a little glitzy to me. Overall, I'm pleased. I like it. I'm not going to baby it. I'm going to wear it and see how it sticks with me, and we'll go from there. But I like it. It's sort of a root beer thing in terms of colors. Anyway, such as it is, that is my review of the SPB147. Oh, I chose this, by the way. I had already pre-chosen this color combination because I have a real kind of a weakness for it, as you might be able to tell. You know, I tend to like gold and black and stainless. I think they just work together. And so that's why I chose this. I genuinely, the other colors seem to me either slightly, I don't know, just the other things just didn't quite work for me. I like having a little bit of flash. And I also want to thank Colin Inskeep of Arizona Fine Time for being willing to hold this one for me until I could figure out how to get my ducks in a row. So again, thank you very much to Colin Inskeep of Arizona Fine Time for being willing to work with me so that we have this here. He's been unflaggingly professional in every and cheerful in every interaction we've ever had. So give old Colin down at Arizona Fine Time some of your attention. That's it. So onward and upward. Okay, thank you, folks.